I'm your dream companion, the one who helps you unwind after a long, busy day. Before you drift off to sleep, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, where are you listening from right now? What time is it there? Now take a deep breath, get comfortable in bed, and come with me because the night is just beginning, and this story is all yours. The night was calm, the kind of silence that presses against your ears until you begin to hear your own heartbeat echoing through your skull. I had been walking for hours through the dense pine forest, the snow falling in thick, silent waves that swallowed my footprints as soon as I made them. The moon hung low above the trees, a pale, ghostly eye peering through the mist. In the distance, I could see it, a dark castle, half buried in the snow, its windows glowing faintly like the dying embers of a fire that refused to go out. My lantern flickered with each gust of wind, and I could almost swear the shadows between the trees moved just a little too deliberately. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling as it vanished into the white void. No answer, only the soft sound of the snow kissing the earth and the whisper of something unseen gliding just behind me. When I finally reached the gate, the iron bars were coated in frost so thick it looked like bone. I pushed, and the metal groaned as if awakening from centuries of sleep. Inside, the courtyard was a graveyard of statues, angels with broken wings, gargoyles, weeping ice. The front doors were already open, as though someone had been expecting me. I hesitated, staring into the blackness, and then stepped in. The air was stale, tasting of ash and forgotten prayers. My footsteps echoed down a corridor lined with portraits whose painted eyes followed me. One of them, a tall figure in a crimson robe, seemed almost alive. His smile was faint, but I could see the hint of teeth beneath the brushstrokes. "Who are you?" I muttered, half to myself, half to the silence. And then the portrait blinked. I stumbled backward, the lantern swinging wildly, scattering light across the walls. The portrait's smile widened. "You came back," it whispered, the voice dry and ancient, like paper burning. My breath froze in my throat. "What do you mean?" I asked, my words barely audible. "You were here before," the voice said. "You never left." A sudden wind rushed through the corridor. Though no windows were open, the flames in the lantern turned blue, and the castle groaned as if alive, its stones shivering under the weight of the storm. I ran, desperate to find an exit, but each door led to another hallway. Each staircase brought me deeper into the same place. I felt as if the castle itself was rearranging, folding in on me, pulling me inward. Then I saw her, a woman at the end of the hall, wearing a long black dress that shimmered like liquid shadow. Her hair was pale as the snow outside, her eyes reflecting the moonlight even here, deep in the dark. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. Her voice was music, both beautiful and unbearable. "I don't understand," I managed. But she raised a hand, silencing me. "The snow remembers," she whispered. "It carries the souls of those who froze beneath it. Every step you took here was already taken before." She drifted closer, her form flickering like smoke. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. "Do you remember the night you died?" My heart stopped. "No," I said, but the word felt like a lie. Images flashed, the same castle. Long ago, candles, laughter, the sound of music, then screams. The woman smiled sadly. "You promised you'd return," she said. "And now you have." Her hand brushed my face, cold as the grave. "Look outside," she whispered. I turned toward the tall window, and through the frost I saw hundreds of figures standing in the snow, pale, motionless, eyes black and hollow, all of them staring up at the castle. My reflection in the glass joined them, but it was not moving as I did. My reflection's mouth curved into a grin. I dropped the lantern, and the light went out. The woman's whisper filled the dark. "Welcome home." The last thing I saw, before the world dissolved. Into white was the snow rising higher, not falling, swallowing the castle whole, like a sea of frozen ghosts, reclaiming what was theirs. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing outside the gate, my breath visible in the cold. The castle loomed in the distance, silent, lifeless. I looked down. My footprints were already gone, erased by the snow, as though I had never been there at all. The next time I woke, the air was colder. I was inside the castle again. The snow outside the tall arched windows glowed with a dim blue light, as if dawn had forgotten to arrive. My breath curled in front of me, vanishing before it reached the ground. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions. The same portraits, the same gargoyles carved into the corners, their eyes gleaming with frost. I could still hear the woman's last words echoing in my head. "Welcome home." My hands trembled. I needed to find a way out, but something in me knew this place didn't have exits. It had memories. As I moved forward, the silence began to pulse. The castle breathed. The walls expanded and contracted. The wood groaned like ribs beneath flesh. Each step echoed not just in sound but in rhythm, as if the floorboards were alive, keeping time with a heart I could not see. I passed a great hall, its ceiling lost in shadows, chandeliers draped with cobwebs that swayed though there was no wind. Beneath them sat a long table, set for a feast that never happened. The plates were cracked, but the candles burned steady, their flames a sickly shade of green. I whispered, "Who lit these?" A voice answered, faint and close, "You did." I turned, but there was no one, only the echo of my own fear bouncing off the stone. I walked faster. Every corridor seemed to lead to another memory, rooms filled with broken instruments, libraries where the books whispered when I passed. I touched one, and the ink bled down the page, spelling a name I couldn't bring myself to read. My name. I stepped back, and the floor beneath me creaked like laughter. From somewhere above, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, patient. I found a spiral staircase, the rail cold and slick with frost. I climbed. The sound of the footsteps followed, matching mine, just a beat behind. When I reached the tower's top, the door was ajar, light spilling through the crack like liquid silver. I pushed it open. The room was circular, the walls lined with mirrors that had long since turned black with age. In the center stood a grand piano covered in dust, yet its keys moved on their own, pressing down one by one, playing a melody I knew too well. My mother's lullaby. "Stop," I whispered, but the song continued, louder, angrier, each note struck like a heartbeat, shaking dust from the rafters. I ran to the piano and slammed the lid shut, but when I looked up, the mirrors had changed. In them, I wasn't alone. The woman from before stood behind me in every reflection. Though she wasn't in the room, her eyes glowed faintly, like dying stars. "You remember the music," she said. "It was yours." "I don't know you," I said, backing away. "I don't." She smiled softly, almost tenderly. "You built this place," she whispered. "You sealed your soul in its stones so you'd never die." The mirrors cracked, every reflection of her shattered into snow. The piano burst open, a rush of wind, cold and violent, swirling through the tower like a scream. I was thrown to the ground. When I looked up again, the woman was gone. But something else had taken her place, my own reflection, standing outside the mirror, staring at me with lifeless eyes. It tilted its head and spoke in my voice, "You are the ghost." The glass behind it exploded, and snow flooded the room. I screamed, crawling backward as icy wind cut through my skin. The reflection walked toward me, each step echoing with a sound like breaking bones. I reached for the door, but it was gone, replaced by a solid wall. The snow rose higher, burying my legs, numbing everything. And then, just before the darkness took me, I heard the castle whisper again, low and endless, "The snow remembers." When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the marble floor of the great hall. The candles had burned down 2 pools of wax, their smoke curling upward like the last sighs of dying souls. The snow outside the windows was falling faster now, heavier, louder, as if the storm itself wanted to drown out whatever this place was trying to say. I sat up slowly, every movement sending echoes through the vast emptiness. My reflection, that thing wearing my face, was gone. Or maybe I was the one who had disappeared, and this was its world now. The line between us was fading. The castle had changed. The air shimmered faintly, and the walls pulsed with a dull, red glow beneath the frost, as if blood still flowed through its stone veins. Somewhere far away, a bell tolled, slow and uneven, its sound bending in the cold. I followed it, drawn like a moth to flame. Each corridor was different now, warped, distorted, breathing. Paintings melted into the walls. Portraits turned to shadows that whispered secrets in languages older than time. I could no longer tell what was real. My breath hung in the air, forming shapes, words, faces. They were calling me deeper. At the end of the corridor, I found a grand door carved from black wood, sealed with thick chains. Symbols I didn't recognize were burned into the surface. Glowing faintly like embers, the bell rang again, this time from behind that door. My hands moved before my mind could stop them. I touched the lock. It was warm. The metal hissed and cracked, and the chains fell away like dead snakes. When the door opened, a gust of freezing air rushed out, and the lights in the hall went out all at once. Inside, there was a chamber, vast, circular, filled with mirrors like the one from before. But these mirrors didn't show reflections. They showed memories. Mine. I stepped closer. In the first, I saw myself as a boy, running through the snow toward this very castle, laughing, my parents calling me from the gates. In the second, I was older, wearing robes, studying by candlelight in a library filled with the same faces from the portraits. In the third, the castle burned flames, devouring its towers, people screaming, and then came the last one, me, standing at this door, touching it exactly as I did now. A perfect circle, a curse without end. My throat went dry. What am I whispered. From the center of the chamber, the woman appeared again, her form now translucent, her voice softer, sadder. You were its master, she said. You made the castle live, but you forgot the cost. I shook my head. No, this isn't real. It can't be. She raised her hand, and the snow began to fall inside the chamber, slow and silent. You wanted to preserve your soul, she said. And you did. Every storm that touches these walls carries a piece of you. The snow outside, it's all you. The mirrors cracked at once, releasing a blinding white light. I fell to my knees as the air filled with whispers. Hundreds, thousands of voices speaking in unison. They weren't screaming, they were praying. For freedom, for rest, for me. The woman knelt beside me, her touch colder than death. It's time to remember, she whispered, and time to let go. I looked up through the shattered mirrors. I could see the storm raging beyond the castle. The snow was rising, swirling upward, forming shapes, faces, all of them mine. My reflection, my memories, my sins, all returning to the sky. The castle trembled, groaning as if it too wanted to die. I took one last breath, closed my eyes, and whispered, then let it end. The ground split, the wind screamed, the castle's towers collapsed one by one, dissolving into 1,000 shards of ice. The last thing I felt was the snow on my skin, melting as if an apology. When silence finally came, there was no castle, only endless snow, whispering softly over the mountain, and somewhere beneath it faint, eternal, the echo of a heartbeat, waiting for the next soul to wander too far into the storm. The world was white, not bright, not warm, just an endless stretch of silence wrapped in snow. I opened my eyes, but there was no horizon. No up or down, only a soft, glowing mist that pulsed faintly with a rhythm I somehow recognized, my own heartbeat. I didn't remember how I'd come here, or what name I once had, but I felt something deep within the snow, a whisper that seemed to call my soul by a sound rather than a word. It was familiar, and it was mine. I rose, brushing frost from my skin, and realized that my breath no longer turned to mist. I wasn't alive, but I wasn't gone either. From the mist, a figure approached. She was cloaked in white, her face hidden by a veil of frost. Yet I knew her instantly, the woman from before, the voice that had guided me to the end. But now her presence was softer, calmer, like the reflection of the moon on frozen water. You returned, she said, her voice echoing from all directions. The snow stirred as I moved, shifting in patterns like ripples in water. Beneath my feet I could see faint shapes forming outlines of towers, archways, windows, a shadow of the castle that once stood here. It was as if the world remembered what I had destroyed. I reached out, touching the air where the great hall had been. And for a moment, I saw it again. The chandelier, the long crimson carpet, the mirrors glittering like frozen stars. But then it faded, replaced by the hollow hum of wind over ice. I whispered, "I remember you," and the snow answered, "Or maybe I never left," I replied. My voice sounded distant, as if carried by the wind rather than spoken aloud. She nodded slowly. "The storm is your prison, and your sanctuary. You bound your soul to the snow so that the world would never forget what you built." I looked around, the horizon folding into itself endlessly. Then why am I here again? Why wake me? Her veil shimmered as she stepped closer. Because the snow remembers everything, even the warmth it lost. The world is changing, the ice is melting, and when it does, the memories buried beneath it will rise. A sudden tremor shook the ground, soft but deep. Cracks spread through the ice like lightning veins, revealing flashes of dark water beneath. I felt panic surge, not for myself, but for them, the souls trapped within the storm. The voices I'd once heard began to return, faint and distant at first, then growing louder. They weren't screaming this time. They were singing. The sound was mournful, beautiful, alive. The woman raised her hand toward the sky. "They're calling for release," she said. "You are still their keeper." Took a step back, shaking my head. No, I ended it. I let it go. The castle fell. The curse broke. Her voice turned to a whisper. "Did it?" The wind howled suddenly, cutting through us like a blade. The snow around me began to move, forming shapes, familiar ones, faces, dozens of them, rising from the ice, translucent and cold, their eyes glowing faintly blue. They looked at me not with hatred, but with longing. One of them reached out, a boy, his skin pale as frost. "We never left," he said. "You're still here with us. We are you." The ground cracked wider, light spilling upward from beneath. I fell to my knees, my hands sinking into the snow that now pulsed like flesh. Memories hit me all at once. Centuries of silence, of frozen dreams, of storms that never ended because I never ended them. I realized then that destroying the castle hadn't freed me. It had only scattered me across the world. Piece by piece, snowflake by snowflake, I had become the storm itself. The woman knelt beside me again, her touch no longer cold. "You can still end it," she said softly. "Not by forgetting, but by remembering everything." I closed my eyes, and for the first time since the fall of the castle, I let myself remember every face, every voice, every soul I had bound to my creation. I saw their lives, their pain, their laughter. I saw how they had followed me even into death, waiting for me to wake. The storm grew brighter, whiter, until the world itself seemed to dissolve into light. When I opened my eyes again, the snow was gone. The air smelled of rain and earth. The mountains had melted into green valleys, and rivers ran where ice once stood. I looked down at my hands, warm, human, trembling. The woman was gone, and in her place stood a small child, smiling faintly. "You did it," he whispered. "You set us free." I smiled back, tears mixing with the rain. "Then it's over," I said. But as the wind passed through the valley, I heard it again, faint, distant, eternal, the echo of my own heartbeat beneath the rain. And I knew the storm never truly ends. It only learns how to dream. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the wind outside the castle turned into something else, something almost human. I heard low murmurs behind the stone walls, like 100 voices whispering in prayer. But the words were twisted, distorted. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind pushing through cracks in the old structure, but deep down, I knew the truth. The castle was speaking. Every creak, every sigh of the floorboards carried fragments of a forgotten language. My candle flickered, shadows stretched across the room like living things, and I could almost see faces forming in the darkness, pale and fleeting. When I stood by the window, the snow outside looked unreal, falling in slow motion, glowing faintly under the moonlight. In the distance, I could still see the tower where the old lord used to live, the one no one dared to enter after midnight. They said the lord never died, that he was buried within the walls themselves, and when the snow touched the castle stones, it melted faster there. as if the cold couldn't reach that part anymore. I walked through the corridor, candle trembling in my hand, the air thick with the smell of old wood and iron. The portraits on the walls seemed to follow me there, painted eyes alive, aware. The silence felt heavy, like it was pressing against my chest. Then I heard it again, a soft voice behind me, calling my name. Not loudly, not even urgently, but with a slow, painful tone, like someone breathing through dust. I turned, but nothing was there, just the endless hallway fading into black. My reflection in a cracked mirror looked wrong, slower, delayed, and when I blinked, it didn't. My own eyes inside the reflection kept staring even when I turned away. I felt the walls vibrate, a low hum traveling through the stones like a heartbeat buried deep below. Somewhere above me, a door opened by itself, followed by the faintest footsteps. I started climbing the spiral stairs, each step echoing like a bell toll in an empty church. Halfway up, I noticed the candle flame leaning backward, not from wind, but from something breathing behind me. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just kept walking, until the stairs ended at a large wooden door, carved with strange symbols, glowing faintly blue, pulsing like veins. I pushed it open and found a vast room filled with snow. Not outside, but inside. The floor was covered in a thin white layer, and snowflakes were still falling from nowhere, disappearing before touching the ground. In the middle stood a massive mirror, framed in black iron, taller than any man. Inside it, I didn't see myself. I saw the castle from above, every tower, every corridor, but also something else. Shadows moving between the walls, hundreds of them. Then one of the shadows turned its face, and it had my eyes. The mirror cracked, a sharp, freezing wind rushed out, and I heard all the whispers become screams. Screaming in unison, my name. The candle died, darkness swallowed everything, and for a second, I thought I was gone. But when the light returned, I was standing outside the castle, snow falling quietly again. The window where my room had been was dark, yet I could see a faint silhouette standing there, holding a candle, watching me. I couldn't move. The castle was silent again, calm and distant, like it had never spoken at all. But deep inside, I knew it was still breathing, waiting for me to come back. The snow was falling heavier now, covering the path before me, erasing every trace of where I had walked. I could still see the castle behind me, its towers piercing the night like black spires, windows glowing faintly with that same amber light I once found comforting. But now it looked alive, like a creature watching me breathe. I wanted to keep walking, to leave its shadow forever. Yet every step forward felt like sinking into a dream I could not wake from. The forest around me groaned under the weight of snow. Trees bent low, whispering through their frozen branches. Then I heard it again, the sound of the castle's voice, muffled, deep, vibrating through the air like thunder beneath the ground. My name, always my name. I turned, and for a moment, I saw something move across the tallest tower, a dark figure walking slowly along the edge of the roof. It stopped and looked down at me, even from that impossible distance. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it smiled. I tried to run, but the forest paths twisted, leading me back to the same clearing. The moonlight broke through the clouds, pale and cold, illuminating something half buried in the snow, a door made of stone, standing upright in the middle of the woods, detached from any wall. Its surface was carved with the same symbols I saw in the tower. My breath fogged the air, trembling as I touched it. The moment my fingers brushed the frozen stone, I felt warm, a heartbeat pulsing inside the rock. The snow around it began to melt, revealing a faint blue glow seeping from the cracks. I stepped back, but the ground gave way beneath me. I fell into darkness, into silence, until I landed in a corridor I knew too well. The same hall, the same portraits, their eyes gleaming brighter than before. I was back inside the castle. The door had brought me home. The air was colder, heavier, almost alive. The candle in my hand reappeared, burning without me lighting it. I didn't question it anymore. The castle was giving me what it wanted me to have. I walked forward, my footsteps echoing in rhythm with something beneath the floor. That same heartbeat, slow and patient. The walls breathed with me, One of the portraits whispered, its lips moving subtly, "He never left." I froze. The reflection in the nearby mirror moved closer, though I hadn't approached. My reflection smiled. "You never left," it said. Then I realized what the whispers had been trying to tell me all along. I had died in that room when the mirror cracked. The snow outside was only falling on my body, not my soul. The castle didn't imprison me. It kept me. I looked at the reflection one last time and saw the candlelight dimming in its hand as mine went out. Darkness returned, but this time I didn't resist. The castle sighed softly, like it was finally at peace, as the last sound of my heartbeat joined the whispering walls forever. The first time I saw the castle, it was through a storm. Snow fell sideways, cutting the air like glass, and the path that led up the hill was half swallowed by ice. I had been traveling for days. My carriage lost somewhere behind the trees, the horses gone, the sky dark for too long. Then, through the haze of white and shadow, I saw the towers rising above the forest, black against the faint blue of twilight, their tips piercing the clouds. Something about it felt wrong and beautiful at once, as if the castle didn't stand on earth, but floated between worlds. I should have turned back, but the light I saw through one of the windows, a warm, golden flicker, drew me forward like a star calling to a lost soul. When I reached the gates, they were already open, metal groaning softly in the wind. No footprints in the snow, no sound except the faint hum of the wind slipping through the cracks. I stepped inside, and the storm outside stopped instantly, as if the world had closed its mouth to listen. The air smelled of wax, old books, and dust. The silence pressed against my ears until I thought I could hear my own pulse echoing through the halls. I walked deeper into the castle, my boots sinking slightly into the red carpet, my breath leaving trails of fog in the stillness. Portraits lined the walls, faces painted with eerie precision. Some looked almost alive, their eyes glistening like they were wet. As I passed, I could swear they turned toward me, one by one. A single candle burned on a wooden table, the flame bending sideways, though there was no wind. The light reflected on the walls, and for a moment I saw another shadow walking beside mine, moving slower, lagging behind by half a second. When I turned, it was gone, but the air grew colder, my spine stiffening. "Hello," I whispered, but the echo that answered didn't sound like me. It was deeper, slower, filled with something like sorrow. I felt drawn toward the grand staircase, the one that spiraled into the upper darkness. Each step groaned under my weight, like the castle remembered this sound, footsteps that had once belonged to someone else. At the top, a long corridor stretched before me, endless, lined with mirrors. Every reflection shimmered faintly, distorted, as if the glass were breathing. I moved closer to one, and there, in the reflection, behind me, stood a man holding a candle, his face pale, his eyes hollow, his lips whispering something I couldn't hear. I turned, but the corridor was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, he was closer. My hands trembled, the candle wax dripping down my fingers, burning my skin. The whisper grew louder. Now I could make out words. "You came back." The air vibrated with that voice, deep and distant, like it came from the stones themselves. "I don't understand," I muttered, backing away. The mirrors began to crack one by one, the sound sharp and rhythmic, like bones breaking under ice. From the fractures, a pale light seeped out, and through it I saw glimpses of another place, a snow-covered courtyard, a shadow kneeling beside a grave with no name, the same castle but older, darker, pulsing with veins of blue fire. Then the last mirror shattered completely, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing outside, snow falling gently over my shoulders. The castle loomed behind me, quiet and still, its windows dark once more. I turned to leave, but on the frozen gate, written in frost, were the words, "Welcome home." I looked down and saw two sets of footprints, one mine, and one leading beside me, ending where I stood. My breath caught. From the highest tower, a candle flickered to life, and for the briefest moment, I saw a figure watching me, holding a light, just like mine. Then the flame vanished, and so did my shadow. The snow fell faster, covering everything, erasing the path. and the silence returned, deep, eternal, and waiting for the next traveler who would knock at dusk. The storm returned the next night. I woke to the sound of wind scraping against the window like claws. The candle I had left on the table was still burning, though I was sure I had blown it out before falling asleep. Its flame burned blue now, cold, motionless, unnatural. The air inside the room was colder than the snow outside. I stood, disoriented, the faint memory of a dream still clinging to me. I had been walking through endless corridors, chased by footsteps that echoed in perfect rhythm with mine. Only now, as I looked toward the door, I realized the sound hadn't stopped. Someone was walking outside, slowly, back and forth, dragging what sounded like chains across the floor. I approached carefully, my breath trembling in the flickering light. The handle of the door turned by itself. My body froze. A voice whispered from the other side, not loud, not violent, but calm, almost kind. "You shouldn't have lit the candle." Then silence. I took a step back, but the door opened just enough for a sliver of darkness to spill in. My reflection in the mirror behind me moved closer to the doorway. Even though I hadn't, I watched as its hand reached out, touching the air between glass and reality, and suddenly the blue flame stretched tall and thin, burning with a sound like distant weeping. I ran. The corridors were different now, longer, darker, turning into paths I didn't recognize. Every door I passed led back to the same place, the grand hall with the broken mirrors, only now they were whole again. But instead of reflecting me, each one showed a different scene, versions of the castle through time. In one, the walls were new, golden and alive with light. In another, they were covered in blood, windows shattered, snow blowing through open wounds in the stone. And in one, I saw myself standing exactly as I was now, staring into a mirror that reflected another version of me, over and over, stretching into infinity. The hum of the castle grew louder, a deep vibration under the floor that felt like breathing. "You are him," the whisper said, overlapping dozens of voices at once. "He waited for you to come back." I screamed at them, but the sound came out wrong, slow, distorted, as if the castle itself was swallowing my words before they reached the air. My candle flickered violently, its blue flame shifting to red, then gold. For a moment, I thought I saw another hand holding it with mine, pale fingers overlapping mine perfectly, as if guiding me deeper into the dark. At the end of the hall stood a door I hadn't seen before, black wood, carved with the same glowing runes that had haunted my dreams since I arrived. I opened it, and inside was a room filled with snow, just like in the stories whispered in the village below. The snow fell inside, from nowhere, melting as it touched the ground. In the center of the room stood a coffin made of glass, faintly glowing from within. I approached slowly, unable to stop myself. Inside lay a man, his face peaceful, his skin pale as marble, a candle resting on his chest. The flame was the same color as mine. Then his eyes opened. I dropped my candle, and the two flames merged on the floor, twisting together, forming a single blinding light that filled the entire chamber. When it faded, I wasn't standing anymore. I was lying inside the coffin, looking up through the glass. Snow fell above me, and beyond it. I could see my reflection standing where I once was, holding the candle, eyes hollow, lips moving in silent words. The door closed by itself, sealing the room in quiet. The flame kept burning. It always would. And somewhere deep in the castle, the whispers began again, waiting for the next lost soul to light the candle that would never die. Years passed, or maybe centuries. Time did not move inside the castle. It pulsed, slow and circular, like blood trapped in a single vein. I no longer knew who I was. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't breathe. I was simply there, an echo trapped in the stone. Part of the hum that filled the corridors at night. I could see everything. The snow never stopped falling beyond the windows, yet it never touched the ground inside. Shadows drifted across the walls, forming shapes that almost remembered being human. Sometimes I saw myself in them, the old me, the one who had walked through those doors seeking warmth, unaware that warmth was the bait. The castle was quiet most nights, content in its hunger, until one evening the silence broke. I felt it before it happened, the vibration, faint but growing, like a heartbeat waking after too long a sleep. Then the sound came. Footsteps on the frozen path outside. Someone was coming. The castle stirred, walls stretching, doors shifting, mirrors whispering. It remembered. It was ready again. The gates opened before she could touch them. The young woman, wrapped in a long dark coat, her face hidden beneath a hood. Her breath shone silver in the cold. She hesitated for only a second before stepping inside. I wanted to warn her. I tried. But my voice was the wind now, and it carried no words. She looked around, cautious but curious, eyes wide as they reflected the flickering light of the grand hall. "Hello," she called. The castle didn't answer. It only listened. Her voice echoed down the corridor, bending in strange ways, as if someone else were repeating it deeper within. She walked toward the staircase. Always the staircase. Always the same path. The candle was already there, waiting at the bottom step, its small golden flame steady and inviting. "Who left this here?" she murmured, kneeling. When she touched it, the flame changed color, pale blue, the same as mine had been. She frowned, but didn't drop it. "Beautiful," she whispered. That single word sealed her fate. The castle closed its doors behind her, and I felt the tremor again, that heartbeat. Mine, hers, ours, merging through the walls. She explored the corridors, as I once did. Every mirror she passed rippled, showing glimpses of me, of others, of moments that had already happened but refused to die. The air grew heavier, colder, but she pressed on, drawn by the faint sound of bells ringing from somewhere above. I watched as she climbed the tower, my tower, her candle lighting the same symbols that had cursed me. When she reached the top, she found the coffin. It was empty now. The glass was cracked, and in the silence that followed, I felt her breath align with mine. She placed the candle on the coffin's edge, whispering, "Who are you?" I wanted to answer. I did answer, but the words came out through her mouth instead. "I am you." The candle's flame flared white, brighter than the moon, and everything around her began to blur, folding inward. The mirrors below shattered, the bells fell silent, and the castle exhaled, long and deep. When the light dimmed, she stood still, calm, her eyes glowing faintly with the reflection of the flame. The coffin was full again. I was gone, she was home, and the castle, ever patient, began to wait once more, for the next soul to hear the candle whisper its name through the snow. The years passed like whispers. The snow outside became eternal. It no longer melted, no longer touched the earth. The world beyond the forest forgot this place, as if the castle had folded itself out of time. I remained here, neither living nor gone, watching the endless loop repeat, the footsteps, the curiosity, the candle, the voice that always said come in. But now, something had changed. The air grew thin, hollow. The castle's heartbeat weakened. Its walls trembled, not in hunger, but in exhaustion. The flame that had never died began to flicker. I could feel it, the fading pulse beneath the stone. I walked through the corridors that had once spoken to me, and they were silent. The portraits had turned to dust, their eyes empty voids. The mirrors no longer reflected. The whispers were gone, replaced by a soft, endless hum, like a sigh too tired to continue. I found myself in the great hall again, snow covering the marble floor. The doors stood open for the first time in centuries, and moonlight poured inside like liquid silver. I realized then that the castle wasn't dying, it was letting go. I followed the moonlight through the hall and up the spiral stairs, past the burned torches and cracked stones, until I reached the tower. The door was gone, only a frame remained, leading to the room where it had all begun. The glass coffin was shattered completely, its shards scattered like frozen tears across the floor. In the center, a single candle still burned, small, weak, its flame trembling against the draft. I approached it slowly, and as I did, the air shimmered. I saw them, all of them, the ones who came before me. Their silhouettes stood around the room, faint outlines made of mist and memory. They were watching, waiting, but not with fear, with peace. The young woman was there too, her eyes calm, holding another candle that burned with the same blue flame. She smiled, and for the first time, I felt warmth. "It's time," she said softly. Her voice was not hers alone. It carried every echo, every whisper, every scream the castle had ever held. I nodded. The flame on the floor stretched upward, merging with hers, forming a single column of light that reached the ceiling and pierced the clouds above. Outside, the storm stopped. The snow hung still in the air, frozen in place, like time itself had taken one last breath. Then, everything fell silent. The light faded, the flame went out. The castle stood dark and motionless beneath the frozen sky, its towers reflected in the endless snow. The curse had broken, or perhaps it had simply ended. No more footsteps echoed through its halls. No more candles waited to be lit. Only the wind remained, singing softly through the ruins, carrying fragments of names that no one remembered. I stood at the doorway, watching dawn touch the horizon for the first time in what felt like centuries. The snow began to melt, drop by drop, and with each drop, the weight of eternity slipped away. I walked outside, feeling the cold air fill my lungs again. Real air, alive and sharp. Behind me, the castle crumbled quietly, its stones dissolving into mist, returning to the earth that had once given it form. And when the last tower fell, there was no sound, only peace. The forest bloomed beneath the rising sun, golden light spilling over the thawing ground. My candle was gone, my shadow too, but I didn't need them anymore. I was free. The castle had finally slept, and as the wind carried the last whisper away, it said only one word: rest.